Welcome back to the Marginaut Show, the tech show about hacking. In this video, I'm going to go over the darkest monster on the dark web. Darkest monster on the dark web is going to be 10 situations, real life situations, and I'm going to end on the last one, meaning the darkest monster on the dark web. So without further ado, let's get right into it. You know we're going dark. So the dark web is often seen as like, well, a dark place with a lot of illegal and gruesome activities taking place. However, that's not the only kind of stuff that takes place on the dark web. After all, Tor networks of sites includes platforms for whistleblower support, open discussion forums, and even some funny websites. So it's not all dark. Nonetheless, the infamous red rooms and snuff films are very real. Even if there are fake ones making the rounds, there are truly dark activities taking place on the dark web. Consider this a trigger warning. This list includes some horrifying incidents, so we suggest you skip numbers 4, 6, and 8 if you're faint of heart or suffering from any kind of anxiety or stress disorder. Number 1, no love deep web. Back in August of 2012, visitors on the dark web could find clues scattered on the network that led them through a fascinating alternate reality game, much like Cicadas, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, 3031's 4-chain game. The clues led regular users through an array of clever clues set up like a treasure hunt. The game employed a lot of encryption means to hide its hints, including the famous Caesar cipher, QR codes, Morse code, and a lot of other similar encryption methods. All of the clues were spread around dark websites, and one participant recounts the experience as quite thrilling. I was part of the No Love Deep Web alternate reality game where we had to do a deep net scavenger hunt, which culminated in me driving to New York to answer a payphone at 3 a.m. That was cool, says someone anonymous. What's going on? Well, it wasn't a secret government agency recruiting new members, and it wasn't a feat of a group of cyber criminals. Rather, the game was created by experimental hip-hop group Death Grips to promote their new album, No Love Deep Web. Number 2, Evite blackmailing. We're at the second entry on the list, and we're already discussing illegal activities taking place on the dark web. Go figure, right? In 2019, Evite, a successful social planning service, experienced a massive security breach that compromised the personal information, like the home addresses, passwords, and user IP addresses of more than 10 million Evite users. Evite is a big platform, so the safety and the privacy of its members is important to them. Endangering the privacy of said 10 million customers doesn't sound like something anyone would want, right? Apart from those who want to exploit the security breach. As it turned out, the hackers that set the breach in motion, which is Gnostic players, didn't release any information to the public. Rather, he contacted Evite and asked for $1,900 in Bitcoin. $1,900 in Bitcoin. That's a relatively small amount, as data breaches of this size can cost companies millions of dollars in settlements. Evite didn't pay, and the hacker actually started selling people's information on the dark web for a short period of time in the summer of 2019. The market he was selling it on then got shut down. We haven't heard any developments to this story ever since. Regardless of how this story ended, the stealing and selling of personal data on the dark web is always horrendous for all victims involved, as platforms like Genesis Market show. However, this will be the only data theft related entry on this list, since we're getting into more police show stuff now. Number 3, the rise and fall of the Silk Web. Let me know in the comment section below if you know this story, right? Silk Road reportedly facilitated the sale of narcotics amounting to $1.2 billion throughout its existence. In its heyday, it grossed Ross Ulbright, its creator, $3.6 million. The platform was a literal dark market with merchants offering their products just like they would be on eBay or Amazon. Users of this dark web market were always a few clicks and bitcoins away from guns, drugs, or other illegal products and illegal content, but the government wasn't idle. In 2013, Ross was apprehended and sentenced to life in prison for the operation. However, similar platforms called Agora and Silk Road 2.0 are still around the dark web, continuing their business to this day. The next one, number 4, we have the popularity of steak and cheese. And now we can get into the more gruesome parts of the dark web, okay? Steak and Cheese or Rotten are websites where users can watch very graphic violent and gruesome videos. Just the fact that these platforms are still reportedly up and running and growing in popularity shows a darker side of this part of the internet. And it stands to show the kind of things you're bound to encounter on the dark web if you don't proceed with care. A good rule of thumb is to never click on a link unless you know where it leads. However, the surprising thing about Steak and Cheese, I'm gonna have to brace myself before I even, what I'm saying, is that it was actually a website indexed by Google for a long time. Back in the late 2000s, people could actually access websites that feature gory videos on the surface web. Fortunately, Steak and Cheese is no longer available on Google. Thank God. Thank God. Number 5, we have the Hidden Wiki and its charting of the dark web. Navigating the dark web is not as easy as browsing the regular internet. There's no search engine to index all the URLs out there, and if you're looking for something less popular, you'll usually have to get a link from someone. This is true for all navigation on the dark web, at least before the Hidden Wiki showed up. The Hidden Wiki is a collection of popular sites on the dark web, and it significantly improved navigation of the dark web, seeing as this part of the internet is also used to help whistleblowers seek help and provide free information to oppressed peoples. This event marked an important step forward for the dark web. The site was first published back in 2007. That's a long time ago. But it only gained prominence in the early 2010s when more people started accessing the dark web. If this sounds interesting, you can read the article on dark websites, that are worth visiting. Next, this is 6. We have the egregious case of Peter Scully. Peter Scully is a terrifying character, and his story is bound to send some chills down your spine. Peter is an Australian currently serving a life sentence in the Philippines after being convicted of human trafficking and rape by sexual assault against minors. He also is on trial for spreading child torture and murder, nasty child things on the internet. You can use your imagination. He did all of the aforementioned things, recorded these acts, and uploaded these recordings on the dark web. What Peter did is horrible, and we were hesitant about including him on the list, right? I was included, right? However, what he did is one of the most notorious cases on the dark web, and is such we had to include it on our list. It also has a somewhat of a reassuring ending. While what he did remains an atrocity, Peter Scully was apprehended, and he should no longer be a threat to anyone. Number 7, the next one, I don't even know if I'm saying his name right. Hu Ming NGO's capture. Hu Ming is an international criminal who orchestrated massive identity thefts, wire frauds, and device frauds over the dark web. He made almost $2 million from these endeavors back in 2012, but the US Secret Service caught on to him. In 2013, he was tricked to come to the US for a business deal, promising huge amounts of personal and financial data for him to sell on the dark web. Unfortunately for him, there was no lucrative business in the US, since the partner waiting in this US was actually an undercover agent who apprehended him. He spent 6 years in prison and was released at the end of 2019. According to Wikipedia, he currently works as a technical expert at Vietnam's National Cybersecurity Center. Number 8, the hitman scams. The dark web is notorious for featuring tons of hitmen for hire sites. Considering the dark web's image, a lot of people bought into the idea that they could actually have someone killed by paying large amounts of money in Bitcoin to someone on the dark web. That is crazy, right? There are a lot of stories going around Reddit about people getting rid of their problems with hitmen hired on the dark web. And if you access the dark web yourself, you can find a fake but posting as real hitman service with a little bit of research. There's even a Reddit story about a person who presumably hired a hitman on himself to have some fun.
Hey, that's pretty good.
Isn't that crazy? So the story is captivating. We'll give him that. Nevertheless, too many, it won't come as a surprise. These hitman services generally and fortunately aren't very legitimate. And if you needed confirmation that everything about this seems a bit sketchy, the New York Times, you got the New York Times involved. The New York Times researched this interesting niche of the dark web and found that it was all a scam. The hitman services would take the money and then they would ghost the buyers. Well, number 9, Julian Assange and his ongoing incarceration. WikiLeaks is a famous online platform where classified documents and state secrets get published on a regular basis. The platform itself isn't on the dark web. It's actually available for anyone to see here on the surface web. Throughout its 14 years of activity, WikiLeaks published secret information pertaining to the Iraq War.
It's April 2010, and this video depicting what looks like a war crime goes around the world.
The 2016 presidential election in the United States and thousands of pages of confidential communication between U.S. diplomats. However, WikiLeaks sends and receives this classified information over the dark web. Among the platform they use to communicate surely is SecureDrop, which is a website managed by the Freedom of the Press Foundation. As you can guess, the US government didn't take kindly to its secrets being revealed to the public. We all know privacy is key. Back in 2010, Julian Assange, the owner and publisher of WikiLeaks, had an international warrant put out on his name for allegations of sexual assault. He took refuge in Ecuador's embassy in London, where he lived until 2019. But last year, he had a run-in with Ecuadorian authorities, and he was evicted from the premises. The US and Swedish government dropped their charges against Assange the same year, but he was then arrested and jailed in the UK for breaching the Bail Act. This guy just can't get out of his own way. He was only sentenced to 50 weeks in prison. However, the US is preparing a case to prosecute him under the Espionage Act of 1917. Right now he's in prison awaiting trial. Number 10, Edward Snowden. Edward Snowden is a former NSA and CIA employee who became a whistleblower in 2013. Snowden made a lot of classified information about population service public. He swiftly fled the US and was en route to an unknown country in Latin America when his passport was revoked while in transit to Moscow. He filed for political asylum with the Russian government and has been living there ever since. What Edward Snowden did remains extremely controversial to this day, but his actions undoubtedly brought the topic of population surveillance to the forefront of civic dialogue. Did you guys see the Edward Snowden movie? Let me know in the comment section below. Snowden is living proof of what governments do behind closed doors and the lengths they'll go to when they want to prevent that information from leaking to the public. He was also a catalyst to promote the importance of freedom and privacy to each individual. He was able to show that, at least in the US, people's private lives are not always that private, and that the government could be scooping into what you're doing at any time. He did all of this in part using the dark web. Back in 2013, he shared documents and details outlining the PRISM surveillance program over the dark web with journalists from the Washington Post and The Guardian. So what do you think about what I talked about here? Is there a bigger monster? Is there a better monster? Please let me know in the comment section below. Please hit the subscribe button. Please hit the notification bell. Please share the content. I appreciate your viewership and see you on the next video.